13th, 2020. This is the Town of Ossining Planning Board meeting by Zoom. And let's go around the screens and introduce ourselves. Sandy?
Sandy Anelli, Secretary.
Dan?
Dan Ciarcia, Consulting Engineer of the Planning Board.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Stevens, Planning Board Member.
Christy?
Christy Adana, attorney, filling in for Kathy Zalantis, Planning Board Attorney.
Jim?
Jim Bocinas, Planning Board Member.
Donna?
Donna Sharrett, Planning Board Member.
Valerie?
Valerie Menastra, Planning Consultant to the Planning Board.
And I'm Jim Watchin, the chair. We are apparently missing Garrett and our alternate today as well. The applicant should be aware of that just so that they know that they're not speaking to the full board. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the Rinaldi subdivision, 39 Stormy Town Road, a 10-lot subdivision, final subdivision review, continuing the public hearing. I understand that the applicant wishes to adjourn this. Is that correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Are there any members of the public here or that were here for that presentation or for this part of the hearing? Okay. Do we need to make a resolution to adjourn this meeting?
You could just do a motion to adjourn the public hearing to your January 20th meeting.
Okay. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So move.
I'll second.
Okay. Hey, Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes as well. Carolyn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Okay. So much for that. The next item on the agenda is the Ecology Energy at Marino, 75 Ryder Road, solar canopy system, site plan review, continuing the public hearing. Are the applicants here?
Yes, I'm here. Julia Maglioso, Ecology.
Great.
Alexa.
Okay. Valerie, where do you stand on this?
Well, the last time this particular application was before this board, it was referred over to it was a recommendation from this board was sent to the town board with regards to the amendment to the zoning.
This guy's on a couch. Oops.
Oh, sorry. With an amendment to the zoning code, as well as the recommendation for an application of the floating zone for this particular property. And this particular application was before the town board. The town board held its public hearing and it adopted both the floating zone as well as the zoning text amendment. And Christy was clearly shepherding that piece on the town board, so she can answer any additional questions you might have on that.
The town board, the town board did follow the planning board's recommendation and made the maximum permitted 23 feet as opposed to the applicant's originally requested 25 feet. And did, as Valerie said, adopt both aspects of the zoning amendments, both the zoning text and applying the floating zone to the applicant's property. So now that that aspect of it has been completed, it's back to this board for site plan review.
That's correct.
Okay. And what's our next step on this?
So your next step is, ultimately this application requires a site plan approval as well as conditional use permit approval from this board.
It's a continuation of the public hearing, as far as I understand it.
Right. Okay. And do we still require any more submissions from the applicant?
Not at this time, unless you have additional questions or concerns on the current site plan application.
Okay. Dan, do you have any comments at this time?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board at this point? Donna?
No.
Jim?
Nope.
No.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to add anything at this time?
No, just thank you for your consideration. Nothing to add.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this matter? Or what were interested in this matter? Oh, hi, Gareth.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late.
Okay, Gareth, do you have any questions or comments from the applicant on the solar panel system?
I do not. I'm happy with it.
All right, so Christy, Valerie, what do we do next on this matter?
Well, as far as I understand it from Valerie, a resolution was previously drafted. I don't know if the board's had an opportunity to review it. If the board wanted to direct the preparation of a resolution, that could be recirculated for the board's consideration at the next meeting. Or if it's really up to the board whether you feel comfortable or in a position to consider voting tonight.
Can we close the public hearing?
You, excuse me, that would start a specific statutory time frame. So I would recommend that if you are going to hold it over to your January meeting, that you leave the public hearing open until that time, and then you can close it right before you vote.
Well, I'm not aware of, we did have a chance to look at the resolution, didn't we?
Yes, the actual the resolution was sent out. This was in the October meeting, if you recall. So it was, it was clearly been a couple months. I can walk the board through the resolution again, or if you'd like to take, the next few weeks to review the resolution, you can do that as well. And I can recirculate it to the board.
Okay, do the board members wish to hear another summary of this, or are we ready to consider it for the next meeting? Or this meeting?
There's not been any changes, right, since the last time that we've discussed it?
No.
So, yes,
I
I'm
would just
okay.
assume have her walk,
Okay.
just walk through it and refresh our recollection and then see if we're comfortable voting.
Okay. All right, Valerie, would you like to just summarize it?
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen, or do you want me to just
Yeah, let's share your screen. We might as well take advantage of the technology.
Okay. So the first few sections is just the background, just explaining the process of this particular application, as well as all the materials that the planning board received and that you carefully examined and considered. I also included in the resolution also lists all of the other agency comments, as well as town staff comments and town consulting comments, also that the town board, the planning board reviewed and considered as part of your comments. And then we, in this particular hearing and testimony and documentation evidence, it just sort of summarizes the information that was submitted. And then as part of the planning board determination, it specifically looks, I'm sorry, wait, hold on a second. I'm looking at, I apologize.
I think that's the club
Hold
fitness.
on a second. I think I have the wrong, I'm going to stop sharing. I have the wrong resolution. I apologize. That was an earlier draft. Okay, so then this section really specifically talks about the planning board finds the tier 3 solar systems will be screened to the maximum extent. It also speaks about the lighting of the solar energy systems will be limited to that minimally required for safety and operational purposes. The clearing of vegetation shall be limited to which is necessary for the operation of the Tier 3 solar system, and that the solar panels have anti-reflective coating. And then we specifically refer to the approved plans as well as the requisites to signing the site plan, which specifically addressed, any outstanding concerns from the town engineer, as well as if there are any changes to the site plan that would have to come back to the planning board. And then specifically field changes as they typically are in your resolution that allows some flexibility in the field changes. Landscaping, again, is your typical requirements dealing with that if for some reason the landscaping does fail, that it has to be replaced, that no commencement of work can take place until the building inspector ensures that all permits have been obtained. And then prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the building inspector can make a field inspection. And then finally, the expiration of the site plan clearly lays out certain requirements that are for the applicant to provide in order to make sure that the site plan does not expire and that the project actually moves forward. And then the specific conditions for this were just the decommissioning plan and the property and operation and maintenance plan, which were the two last items that the applicant is going to submit to the building department.
Okay, do the members of the board have any questions at this time? Donna?
I do not.
Gareth?
No, I don't.
Jim?
I'm comfortable with the project.
Carolyn?
I'm also comfortable with the project.
Okay. So Valerie, Christy, what's the next step on this?
If I could just ask Valerie one question.
Sure.
Is there any reference in this resolution to, it was drafted back in October, so there may not be, the approvals that were granted by the town board?
No, there's not. So maybe amend.
I think we could that's just really a procedural matter. I don't think it should hold up anything. I would just suggest adding a whereas clause, just referencing the fact that the town board did grant the zoning text amendment and the zone map change to include it in the floating zone.
Do you need a motion to amend it?
When you vote on it, you could just vote as amended. I would just recommend that the board close the public hearing first by motion.
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second?
Jim
I'll
second.
second.
Jim, you seconded it?
Yes.
Okay, Gareth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Donna?
Yes.
I'll vote to close it as well. Well, actually, hold on a second. Did we check to see whether, Sandy, were there any members of the public want to speak on this or were interested in this matter?
I had a question. I have a
I'm sorry,
question.
who is this?
My
If there's anyone that wants to speak on this matter, it's Marino property. You just give your name and address.
It's not the Parthnol, it's Marino?
Yes, we're talking about Mary Noel.
Arsenal's not up yet.
Okay, never
This is
mind.
a solar canopy system. It's not the housing project.
Thank you.
So there are no members of the public interested in this matter at this time. Very good. Okay. Yeah, I vote as well to close the public hearing then. Carolyn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I need a motion for the resolution as amended.
I'll move that we adopt the resolution as amended.
Okay. Who seconds?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gareth?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Okay. What's the next step on this? Valerie, Christy?
The project's approved.
Great. So the applicant can go home and be warm?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your attendance. The next item on the agenda is the Borrego Solar, St. Augustine Church, 381 North Highland Avenue, site plan review for the battery storage system for a public hearing. This is opposed to the solar canopy system that we just voted on. Just so that we know for sure, are there any members of the public who are interested in this matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay. So Valerie, where do we stand on this right now?
Well, right now, the applicant provided site plans and completed application. The board felt that it was ready for a public hearing. There are still some outstanding items, and the applicant provided a number of different documents today, which I believe, Sandy responded to the applicant to let them know that, I don't think any of us have had a chance or would have a chance to review the documentation before tonight's meeting. So, next month we'll be able to review what was submitted today and provide you review of their recent submittals. That being said, we did advertise for a public hearing tonight, and the board can open up the public hearing and take public comment at this point.
Right. Yeah, I believe we had mentioned it in public that we would prefer and that the applicants put in their submissions early enough so that the staff has time to review matters before the actual meeting. At any case, since there are members of the public here already, how about the applicant give a short overview of their project so that the members of the public understand what this is about?
Sure. My name is Greg Gibbons. I'm the project engineer. This is for a battery storage project. It supplies energy to the grid at peak demand times. We are supplying batteries for the St. Augustine Church. It is in a screened location back on their parcels outside of any setbacks for the local population. The Croton Bay and Hudson River are adjacent to the property, but that it is well screened. We are providing significant landscaping to, above and beyond screen the system, as well as be congruent with the honeybee population, which is being fostered by the church as the recommendation of the planning board. There is a fire code approved or an access road which meets the International Fire Code, which is a recommendation of the building department, and the site will be screened by a 7-foot fence. There will be access road which is made out of, or which is built with gravel. It will be reinforced with a GeoWeb material, which will make it so it can be plowed and also stand up to just the regular rigors of time. There will be an interconnection onto New York State Route 9A, which is coordinated with the utility. And basically, yeah, it's just a battery storage project that will off-put or level off the energy at peak times for the reduction of utility equipment that's needed at peak moments. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay, Valerie, what are the outstanding matters that they still owe us?
Well, at this point, there was a number of concerns dealing with the getting the fire department's input as well as review under the fire code. There was questions about the landscaping. A lot of the items that they probably supplied us today were still a lot of the outstanding items at this point. So most
Right,
likely,
so-
and I know Dan had a number of comments last month as well. So I believe, over the next month, we'll be able to review the recent submittals and then provide the board a summary of our comments.
Okay. Do members of the, Dan, do you have any comments to add at this time?
Yeah, we have some old comments out there, and also now that the driveway's been regraded, that will impact some things. So I guess between now and the next meeting, we'll have an opportunity to review the latest set of plans.
Okay. I also noticed that there was a submission from a neighbor dealing with the easements. Did we have a chance to review that yet?
Chair, I did take a look at that briefly this afternoon. It does appear that the applicant or the property has an access easement off of the neighboring property. I didn't see anything in there that would be impacted by this application, but really that would be a private property dispute for the purposes of this application. The concern for this board is that the applicant effectively has access to their property, which is demonstrated through those documents. So if there was something that the grantor of the easement felt was being violated by this, it would really be an issue between those property owners. Because like I said, as far as this board is concerned, the applicant does have access.
Thanks, Christy. Does members of the board have any comments or questions at this time? Noting the fact that we're going to have to obviously keep the public hearing open until January. Carolyn?
Not at this time.
Jim?
No.
Gareth?
I'm just wondering if there's been any movement on the archaeological report. I know that it hasn't been submitted yet, but has there been any correspondence or any discussion about findings?
Yeah, we've been in coordination with Harkin Associates, and they haven't found anything. They're progressing their report as we speak, so I don't have any updates on their findings. We did submit a photo log and a site photo log to SHPO directly to get their feedback, because most of the site is on previously disturbed soil, and they appreciated our submission, and they understood that they better understood the area that we're working with, but they are anticipating the submission of the archaeological report, which is coming very soon. I've been in coordination with Harkin, and they expect to have that sometime in the next coming weeks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Donna,
Also,
any questions?
I just wanted to point out we did reduce the road to 10% per the requirement or request from the town and the per fire code, and provide we do have a landscaping plan for the site that we feel will meet the honeybee requirements from the town or from several members of the planning board, and we're confident that we've gone above and beyond to meet any of the previous requests. So we're happy to provide any of the information at this time that is needed.
Donna, do you have anything any questions or comments at this time?
Just quickly, I had mentioned something last time about the low carbon concrete. Were you able to look into that at all?
I don't
For
think
the
I looked
base?
into any low carbon
Okay.
concrete. I apologize, but
Oh, that's
I'll
okay.
write that down now.
Yeah. And then I
you repeat
did
it?
just, it's a low carbon concrete. It's just for the base.
Gotcha.
So I did see you put in a landscape plan with a lot of bee-friendly plants. So I wanted to thank you for that. That was really great. So, obviously we're going to be looking at it more in depth for the next meeting, but that was fantastic.
Yeah, no problem.
And I think that's it. I would, I don't know if it's addressed, but just, it would be something that would be a concern of mine. Is just that if the plants were, if there was any deer protection planned. So that's something we could discuss next time, but that is something that I would be bringing up.
Sure. Yeah, we can discuss that. It looks like from the plan, we got the plan this morning, so we did want to send that along. I apologize for things being late. We're trying to move things as fast as we could, but we will discuss it at the next meeting. And there is deer protection in there.
Oh, great.
It just might be within the limits of the 10-foot offset from the fence, which we're trying to keep. So we might have to work with our landscape architect a little bit more, but we did want to give you a glimpse of what we're planning, which I think was a major concern at the last meeting, was the visual buffering. So that's, we're kind of waiting for for that to come in, and I apologize that it wasn't earlier. So you guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sandy, have the applicant submissions been posted up on our website so that the public can access it?
Yes, they were today.
Great. Okay. So members of the public, be aware that this public hearing will be continued. If you do not wish to speak at this time, you're going to have another chance coming January. But at this point, do any members of the public have any questions or comments at this time?
Yes, I have a question. My name is Sal Soma. I'm a resident of the Mystic Point community. My address is 12 High Ridge Road. I did view the documents that were posted on the website. A couple of questions. I understand there are various sensors and detectors that will be in place in the battery compartments. My question is, are they monitored regularly, and who is monitoring them and their location? Is the company or person monitoring them in the vicinity here, or 100 miles away, or 50 miles away?
Yeah, they will be monitored. Let me answer that real quick since I started.
Sure, go ahead.
They'll be monitored 24/7. Yep, there'll be full-time monitoring. Right. That is part of the O&M plan that will be approved by the building department prior to any building permits being submitted. All of these projects have full-time, like 24/7 monitoring, so that you don't have to worry about that.
Now,
and where they're located,
yes, thank you.
That could be. I mean, I work remote now, so and I'm not always the closest to my construction sites. However, they will be located in the United States, and they will be in constant communication with boots on the ground that can be to the site at a reasonable time if anything goes wrong, and they will be in constant communication with the local fire and emergency departments. They'll have direct emergency numbers. They'll know exactly who to contact if it ever came to that, which it's very unlikely that it does come to that because of all the checks and balances that are in place, like you said, with the monitors and alarms and anything like that.
Okay, now there's also a question about the easement. The entrance road to the Mystic Point community is the road of easement. Is that road able to handle the large construction or heavy weighted vehicles that will be bringing in equipment and cement and whatever it is that comes into the area?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I fully anticipate that it will be able to handle that. I've been on that road 3 times now. I just posted the public hearing sign last week. It does seem like it will be a lot of materials, but it's really not that much material to build this project. And once it's built, it's unmanned. There's not a lot of traffic back and forth. There's a few heavy loads for the batteries, but it's not anything crazy. It's all rated. It's not going to be on oversized crazy trucks that are above the ratings for the highways, and we can be sure that it's not going to destroy any roads to your development.
Okay, well, thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Yes, I'd like to talk. Hi, my name is Bob Margolis. I happen to be on the board at Mystic Point, and I am the source to the planning board or the village engineer to whomever I send it to of the 2 easements. Just a little background from Mystic Point. There's been a lot of confusion at Mystic Point about this project. I personally received a letter from a solar company and immediately put it in the trash because I thought it was somebody trying to sell me solar panels. And a neighbor pointed that out, and I retrieved it from the trash. And we have a very active message site, and people on our message site still think it's a solar project. So I've been trying to, in a email blast that I sent out to the community last night, tried to say it's not a solar project, yet subsequent to that, someone still thinks it's a solar project with all the faults of the chemicals that are in solar panels. So I think we need to look, I guess we as the owner of the road have to look at the easement. I think there's some very specific insurance things in there. And I guess it's up to, and maybe the planning board can confirm that it's up to us to talk to the church to make sure that they have the appropriate insurance for use of that road. Can somebody comment on that from the planning board?
I mean, I looked at it briefly today. It was sent today, so I didn't have an opportunity to pour over it in depth. My understanding was that that insurance was supposed to be in place a long time ago. So if it's, but you know, I defer to you and your attorneys and your legal. That is a private property issue between your entity and the church, and you're certainly within your right to investigate that. And if you have any issues, you can bring it to the planning board's attention, whether it's something that would be within the planning board's purview. I can't say at this stage, but like everyone's been saying, this will be held over, so you will have some time to do that.
Okay. Just a quick question. Was either the solar company or the planning board aware of these easements, or just because a former board member here happened to remember that they existed, and I did some digging in an offering plan, and then got a friend who's an attorney reach out, you know, to get the book numbers and the page numbers out of the, you know, from the county clerk.
Hi, this is Mike Conway from Borrego, the developer and the applicant working on the project here. Yeah, we were aware and are aware of the access easement for the church via Mystic Drive based on our review of the title documents for the property. And so, you know, our sort of cursory legal review there was that you know, the uses that are going to be taking place for the construction of this energy storage system are sort of are in line and are no more obtrusive than the other uses that the church would have for, you know, improvements to the school, building a new rectory, you know, other sort of standard renovation or construction projects that they may have at the church. And so we didn't we haven't to this point seen it sort of legally required to try to make modifications to that easement. But you know, certainly if you know, if you'd like to take this conversation offline between your association and the church and us, we'd be, you know, more than happy to discuss it in detail with you.
Okay, that's the end of my. Just to a lot of confusion here. Some people thought that the way this easement was written, it would prohibit the church from doing any construction on the site. Clearly, that's not the case from reading the two easements. So I think the fact that this hearing is going to be deferred, or you're going to continue this hearing, will give us a time to, you know, research it further, and probably, unfortunately, have to spend some money on an attorney. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other members of the public who wish to question or comment at this time?
Yes, Elizabeth Leggett, 51 Mystic Drive, also Mystic Point. I had 3 questions. The first is for both Greg and Mike. I understand the total weight of these batteries is going to be about 134 tons. And I was just wondering, I couldn't quite pinpoint the soil quality where those batteries will be placed. And I know from living right around the same area, when it rains a lot, our ground gets very wet and mushy. And I'm just wondering if sinkage is going to be an issue with the 134 tons. And I had 2 other questions.
Sure, I'll take that one. We provide geotechnical reports from third-party geotechnical engineers. They will evaluate the subsoils for us and let us know what type of foundations we would be required for this system. If it's if the soils happen to be, so poor that we would need to do some sort of foundation system above and beyond a regular concrete pad, we would propose that, and we wouldn't be able to build, or we wouldn't be able to build the project without that. That's something we take very seriously. My understanding is that the soils are fairly good from the available soil data that is available to anybody through USGS, mostly type A soils. There's also a lot of rock outcrops in the area. There's a large rock outcrop right next to the proposed access road. So that would make me believe that the soils would be fairly susceptible or agreeable for a large or a heavy project such as this. But we will do our due diligence and make sure we cross all those X's and T's and anything like that. All right.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I saw it said 5-foot depth to the bedrock, and I was just wondering if that's too much wiggle room or room for any kind of sinkage or shifting of the batteries, and might that affect the operation of the system?
No, that's about average. That's not shallow or not deep. I mean, I think it could be less or it could be more. The information that's available to the public is just, not the most detailed. But
No.
we will do an advanced geotechnical report like we do with every project and make sure that the foundations are, secure and able to support the weight.
Thank you. And my two other questions, is there already a similar type of operational system like this in our area, just to get some idea?
Mike, I believe there's one, we're proposing one nearby. I don't know if we have any that are built yet.
Yeah, the closest two in operation are just across the river over in Orange County. There's one in the town of Walden. There's another in Otisville. So there are two. I think they're probably within an hour and 90 minutes drive. They're not sort of right next door in Westchester County, but those are the closest two systems that we have that are in operation. Those two particular energy storage systems are about the same size as what's proposed here as far as the batteries themselves are concerned, but they are a bit different in their nature in that those are part of larger solar projects. So on those projects, there's 30 acres or so of solar panels, and then there's a battery in addition to that. This is a little bit different in that there are going to be no solar panels here. There's only going to be the battery, a standalone energy storage battery. So we could, if any of the abutters would like to go see those sites, we can organize a time that our operations and maintenance folks might be able to meet some of you out there. It of course wouldn't be appropriate they're within a fenced area. It wouldn't be appropriate for people to go there on their own. But you could drive by and see it from the road if you wanted to go see those on your own. We could probably provide those addresses to the board if that were something that the board would request.
Thank you. And are these vandalism proof? There are high school kids on the property. With all due respect to the school and the kids.
Sure. Yeah, they're within a fenced 7-foot fence, which obviously is not something that would prevent a high school student from doing anything. But each of the battery units is self-contained and has its own locking enclosure. So we couldn't prevent somebody from maybe spray painting it if they wanted to, but they wouldn't be able to get into it, and there wouldn't be any real hazard for them outside of the structure. We just, ideally they would stay outside of it. The fence would prevent most kids from going inside of that, and I don't think there's really a significant hazard involved with that.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public who wish for questions or comments?
Yes, Gene Buccini at 108 Mystic Drive. The question is for Mike. Mike, this is currently not a solar panel project. Can you assure us that it won't become one in the future?
I can assure, I can only speak to what's on our application. We do not have any agreement or proposal with the church for doing solar panels in the future, neither on the roof of any of the structures there or on the ground. That's our involvement with the church. I can't say for certain or provide any surety that the church would not pursue that in the future with another organization. But I can say with 100% certainty that we are not pursuing that with them at this point.
At this point, would you consider doing it in the future?
I could say that it's unlikely that our organization would, in that we the size solar installation that you could do in the church sort of doesn't meet our minimum threshold. The sites that we do are a bit larger, so it's sort of not in our sort of core business line, which is why I sort of suggested that the church may, if they were going to do solar in the future on the roofs of their buildings or the roofs of the school, for example, they would most likely pursue that with another developer and another applicant to the board. And I can't say for sure that they're not doing that. We're not pursuing that because it's sort of outside of our business model and the types of projects that we do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other members of the public wish to speak or comment?
Bernie Oswick, Croton on Hudson. Kids went to St. Augustine. Is this system integrated with NYISO, NISO? And is it desired by NISO and Con Ed, or are they accommodating the installation?
I would say we'll start with the first part. Is the system integrated with NISO? It is not directly integrated with NISO. The New York Independent System Operator is the nonprofit entity that sits above the transmission system, which is the high voltage, high tension lines that you usually see running sort of cross country, and not the type of stuff that's on streets typically. New York ISO, that sort of upper level administrator, typically doesn't manage assets that are on Con Ed's distribution system unless they're doing certain functions. And so this project is not envisioned to be a direct participant in NISO's market. It instead participates and does its sort of back and forth with Con Ed as a distribution system operator, and then Con Ed interfaces a level upstream with New York ISO.
And Con Ed is looking forward to this installation?
Yeah, this installation is part of a program that Con Ed and the state of New York are administering together to introduce assets that relieve stress on the distribution system, and they're commonly known as demand response or demand relief programs. And so, the way that these systems operate is sort of in response to a signal from Con Ed, where if it's summertime, it's hot out and 4 p.m. and everyone's running their air conditioners, Con Ed will say, okay, we've got a peak demand moment and we need your asset to help us relieve that demand from the system. And
So
our asset
for a 4 hour time period, something like that?
That's correct. That's correct.
And what's the KW? Is it KW or KWH size?
It has both. So the KWH would sort of would describe how much power you can give at any given moment, and then the KWH would introduces how long you can deliver that power for by delivering.
What is the KW size of it?
5,000 kW.
So 5 megawatt.
5 megawatts. That's correct.
And what's the physical size of that? And I'm sorry if I didn't review the things that were posted. Is it like 40 by 40, 20 by 20?
Yeah, Greg, this is proposed as the Fluence grid stack. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, it's about 6,500 square feet for the fence. I believe the battery is about 60 by 30, could be 70 by 35. but the fence is about 6,500 square feet.
The last question, what's the fire suppression system that, how is that? Can you just give me a quick recap of that?
Yeah, I can. There are a couple
Internal?
there are a couple different layers that sort of escalate from internal to external, and then emergency at the far end of the likelihood scale. The first line of protection is sort of the ongoing battery management system, which is sort of an electronic brain for each of the batteries that is sort of that is constantly monitoring certain data points that are inside of the battery and describing how the battery is operating. And so, you know, it's parameters like the ambient temperature of the battery, how many watts and amps and how much resistance going through, just sort of critical data points that tell you about the health of each battery, so that if one of those batteries goes outside of its tolerance, that battery management system, that brain can say, you're out of your tolerance, I need you to shut down, and can sort of isolate that before it becomes, so it doesn't become a more significant incident. On top of that battery management system, that's sort of the first layer. On top of that is a fire suppression system, which contains a sort of non-liquid gaseous agent that's meant to sort of snuff out a spark if it were to happen inside of the container. And so that is, again, it's not meant to fight a fire. It's meant to say if there's what's known as an incipient event, something about to happen, like a small spark, that it would flood the entire container with a fire suppression compound that would sort of take all of the oxygen and all of the, take all of the oxygen out of there and all the things that we're going to sort of instigate that event and effectively suppress that. And then finally, the containers themselves have a firewall rating on them that's rated for several hours, such that if there's a heat event inside of the system, it doesn't, it's not, you know, able to propagate to the outside of the containers.
What's the lifetime expectancy of the system? 20 years, 10 years?
25 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to question or comment?
Yes, Doreen Ginepro, 8 High Ridge Road. I have a question as to who has commissioned this project. Has this been commissioned by Con Edison?
It will be a participant in a program that's administered by Con Ed, but it's not necessarily appropriate to say that Con Ed has specifically commissioned this project. This project is being pursued and commissioned, I guess, by us, Borrego Solar, as the applicant and the developer here. This Con Ed program is sort of open for people to bring products into it and to participate in. So they sort of put out a program and say, you know, we need X amount of demand relief. Anyone who wants to participate that can bring a project to it. And so we're one of those respondents who are bringing a project to that, but Con Ed did not select the site. You know, they've accepted the site and have approved our interconnection, but they didn't say, you know, in this exact spot with this exact customer, we'd like a system. So, you know, did they commission it? Not exactly, but it is part of a program that they administer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the public?
Yes.
Yes, I have a question. My name is Walter Zubert. I live at 77 Mystic Drive in the Mystic Point condominium. Can we expect that this facility, when it's up and running, will be quiet, that it will not emit any noise that any of us would be able to hear?
Yes.
Yes. In our next round of submittals, we can submit data on the ambient noise, but and so that data will come in the format of how many decibels you can hear at 10 meters. So, you know, basically 10 yards away from the container. And then we can do some calculations about, you know, how that attenuates through air and how far, you know, that decibel level will, how far you'll be able to, how well you'll be able to hear that at different distances from that source. Very broadly speaking, heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, the HVAC system that regulates the temperature in that, is sort of the loudest component of the system. And it's about the size of, if any of your homes in the development there have an outdoor compressor for central air system, it's about the size of that. And so as that sort of travels through air, I mean, broadly speaking, once you get 15 or 20 feet away from it, you really can't hear it. But we'd be happy to supply those equations that sort of describe that in a quantifiable way.
Yeah, Mike, I'll add to that. We did respond to a comment from the planning board about that with the specific decibel rating and the decibels at specific distances, and we're well below the town required decibel limit, but we are below ambient levels from any distance that's an abutter's property. So we can provide that again, or we can send more information to the planning board if you're interested.
Great, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing that.
Any other members of the public?
Yes. Hi. Yes. Hi. This is Joanne Olson, 5 Pondview Lane at Mystic Point. I'd like to understand if the property is being purchased by your company and the town, or is it being leased from St. Augustine's?
The property is being leased, and only the portion of the property that our system is going to be located on. So we're only leasing about 15,000 square feet from them. And it's similar to the lifetime of the system, the 25 years, that's the length of the lease as well.
All right. And my second question is, who is the beneficiary of the product that you're installing?
I like to think that we all are. So these energy storage systems, certainly the residents and the electric customers in Con Ed's immediate area realize some sort of more diffuse benefit in that these systems improve the reliability and the resiliency of Con Ed's system by relieving stress during stressful times of the system, which makes it sort of less susceptible to blackouts and brownouts. More broadly, the energy storage program that Con Ed and the state are administering are part of the state's clean energy and climate leadership plan. And systems like this in aggregate are sort of taking the place of some of the more obtrusive fossil fuel and the sort of bad emitting generators that are on the system. And although that is again more of a more diffuse and less of a direct benefit, that is certainly a benefit of this type of installation, and one of the primary goals of the program that the state and Con Ed are administering.
So it may not necessarily be in the immediate area. Is that correct?
In order to have those benefits, you mean?
That's correct.
I think that's accurate to say.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public?
Yes, please.
Elizabeth Leggett again. Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm a big walker and I do a lot of walking around, and it wasn't too many months ago we had a major storm and that whole property was blacked out for a few days. And I'm just wondering, since you said your HVAC system and the alarms, the heating, the cooling require power, what were to happen in the event of a storm if power is lost?
Yeah, the most immediate thing that happens is that our site will also be out of power. And so, though that means that the HVAC system and the auxiliary power systems there, aside from a short amount of battery backup power that they have, which probably only lasts 8 hours or so, will be out of power as well. What that means is that we're not able to supply our product to Con Ed and able to sort of improve the situation within the immediate area. But what it also means is that the battery is not operating, and so it's not, it's sort of any sort of safety considerations that would be involved in the battery's operation would also not be present because the battery is not operating. There's no power to the battery itself. So we'd be experiencing that downtime as well.
So heat and fire risk would not be a problem if that were to happen.
Yes, I believe that's accurate.
Thank you.
Somebody else had asked to speak.
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Very good.
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes, Abby Bergman, 19 Pondview Lane. I was wondering, how do the batteries actually connect to the grid? Are you digging trenches? Where are the physical wires going from the grid to the batteries?
Yeah, they'll be connecting along the north side of St. Augustine's property. Con Ed's, the point of interconnection with Con Ed is along Route 9, and it's not at the access. It's not at the access driveway point. It's sort of against the northeastern side of their property, where near where sort of the off-rampish section is there from Route 9.
Is that going to be above ground or underground?
It will be underground through St. Augustine's property, and then it'll come to meet Con Ed above. Con Ed's system is above ground in the area, so it'll come up from the underground, rise up, and connect to Con Ed on top of a pole.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Okay. Any other further questions from the board members? Carolyn?
No.
Jim?
No.
Donna?
No.
Gareth?
Nope.
Okay, I think we need a motion to adjourn this.
I have questions. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes. It's Marilyn.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, hi. I'm Marilyn Owens. I'm with the town of Austin EAC. And several weeks ago, we did conduct a site visit of the area. And in our discussion, there were several questions that came up that we wanted some clarification on, if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes for those questions. One of the questions was, as far as discussion is there any anticipated leakage from the storage batteries in the short term or long term as they're in existence? If so, the follow-up question would be, what measures are in place to prevent such leakage from entering the soil and eventually possibly into the Hudson River?
Yeah, I was on that site visit, so I do, I guess I remember that question. They're solid state batteries, so there isn't any liquid, like as a lead acid battery, that might have leakage if anything was to happen. There's no leakage involved with these. Also, they're, the containers that they're in are fire rated for several hours. There's no chance for any leakage, but there also is no liquid to be leaked.
Okay. The other question is, you mentioned during this discussion that the system itself, the life of the system is 25 years. I believe that's what you said. But one of our questions was, what is the shelf life of the actual batteries within the facility itself? And how often are those batteries have to be removed or changed, or what's the actual shelf life for those batteries?
I can field that one, Greg, if you don't mind.
Sure, yep.
So yeah, when we refer to the 25-year life, we do refer to the sort of total system. And so I think, as you're suggesting, there are components of that system that'll need to be changed within that 25-year life, and batteries are certainly one of them, as any of us who use a cell phone on a regular basis can attest to. The useful life of the battery tends to die off pretty quickly. So we, as a matter of practice, we change each battery out when it reaches when it's lost 10% of its life, so when it reaches 90% of its full capacity. And we expect that to be, for the first change to be about 8 years into the system, and the second change to be another 8 to 9 years. So we expect for each battery to cycle them out twice during the 25-year life of the system.
The other question was, in comparison to other storage battery projects, how does this particular project compare in terms of the construction, the size, components, and I guess the materials that are being used for this particular project?
Yeah, I can say most of what is being built under the current Con Ed and New York State program is lithium-ion solid-state batteries in the style that we're proposing here. And there are some corner cases to that where there are some sort of newer technologies that folks are using. That what we're proposing, the lithium-ion batteries, is a more proven solution. It's still a relatively newish technology when compared to things like fossil fuels, but in the world of energy storage, it's sort of the tried and true one. In terms of size, it's a similar size to the products that we've done over in Orange County, and comparable to energy storage systems that other storage and solar installers have proposed across the state. It's not going to be the biggest battery that's proposed in the state. It's also not going to be, there will also be smaller batteries proposed in the state. So I'd say it's sort of right in the middle of the pack and consistent with the technologies that most of the industry is using right now in New York.
And the last question is, how does this project compare with the storage battery facility that had the fire and explosion in Arizona back in August of last year?
It's quite a bit different. So the Arizona Public Service battery that had the thermal event was sort of inside a purpose-built sort of warehouse type of structure, and so it has the details of the design of the fire suppression system in that were quite a bit different than what we're proposing here. What we're proposing is a series of smaller closed cabinets that are meant for outdoors, and each one of those cabinets has its own fire suppression system inside of it. So it's a smaller, more modular building blocks, each one of those having its own separate fire suppression and detection systems. And so the design is quite a bit different. I'll say the Arizona Public Service event that they had has informed a lot of the recent developments that the energy storage industry has undergone, given that there was a pretty well publicized event, and so the fire detection suppression measures have gotten much more significant, I'll say, since that system was installed, and what we've proposed here is we think significantly more conservative and has more levels of protection than that system did.
Thank you.
Thanks to the EAC as always. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, this is Joanne Olson again from 5 Pondview at Mystic Point. I have, in a follow-up to the town's questions, since there's no other facilities such as this in Westchester County, why was this site chosen?
I shouldn't say that there are no other. I didn't mean to say that there are no other facilities like this in Westchester County. What I can say definitively is that our organization doesn't have any more in Westchester County. I do believe that there are some other. That there's one behind a Staples, the Staples office supply store in Yorktown Heights, I believe. that's been installed and it's already operational. And so I apologize for the mix up there. That's not the message I meant to deliver. In terms of why this site was selected, the first criteria that we use is maps that are provided by Con Ed. And so, as I was saying earlier, Con Ed doesn't say specifically, we want this property to have an energy storage system, but they do release a map of their system that includes that highlights the areas that would be the most fitting and where energy storage systems would be of the most benefit. And so we use those maps to try to identify areas where we could locate a system that would have it would be sort of a successful installation and would have a benefit to the electrical system. And so that's how this property and the other properties in Westchester that we're developing at this moment were chosen, was primarily by using those Con Ed maps and then sort of comparing it to existing zoning codes and area, sort of overlaying both of those together and saying, is this both an area that would have a benefit to the distribution system and an area where we think that we may be able to get a permit from the permit granting authority or from the town. And so those are sort of the two main criteria that we use to select this particular site.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Great. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn this for Sandy? What's the next date?
January 20th.
I make the motion to adjourn until January 20th.
Second.
Second. Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Carolyn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So I'll see everyone back here in January. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Parsonals LLC Residential Development, 87 Hawks Avenue, amendment to the resolution of site plan approval, a public hearing. Just so we know from the get-go, is any members of the public who are interested in this matter?
Yes, Jason, I'd like to speak.
Okay, hold off on that. All right, so Valerie, where do we stand on this at this point?
This particular project, there's a public hearing on this project because the applicant requested that the resolution be amended, specifically focusing on a few items. They really dealt with the final resolution, and so it dealt with the when they can receive a temporary certificate of occupancy, specifically relating to the pool recreational facilities being built and also the other recreational facilities on site. And the other component of the resolution really focused on the payments to the school district and the recreation fees, and that we would split those amongst the different phases dealing with the temporary certificate of occupancy for building 1 and then the final certificate of occupancy for building 2.
Before we go any further, I have a question, Ching, which is that I received a letter from Parthenos as a neighbor. I live in Fox Hill, and I just wanted to ask Christy if I should recuse myself because of that.
Were you on the board the last time around? No.
No.
Okay. I don't think it would be a conflict of interest.
I just wanted to make sure that
It's really just a matter of whether you can be impartial. So there's no requirement as to under what circumstances you would recuse yourself, but stated it for the record and you've made it public that you received it. Presumably it was also received by other neighbors in the area. So as long as you feel you can be impartial, I don't see an issue.
I think I can be impartial.
I'm sure Carolyn will articulate any of the rationales for her voting anyway.
The last thing I just want to make note of, just for the public's information, is that the applicant is not seeking like a site plan amendment. They are not seeking additional units. They're not seeking changes to the overall site plan itself. It really deals with the final site plan resolution and the contingencies of when they can get the temporary certificate of occupancy and the payments of those various fees.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes, Anthony Bell.
Okay, do you want to add anything at this time?
No, everything was summarized pretty well by Valerie. Yes.
Okay. Now I recall that some of the board members did have concerns, and I believe that Valerie's draft resolution has taken those into account. But Valerie, do you want to go into the amendment description that we think that might be applicable here?
Sure, I can. Would you prefer me to share my screen again?
Sure.
And just highlight the red line pieces. Okay, so the first really dealt with that the certificate, the way the construction sequencing that the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy originally was needed to be upon the completion of construction of building 1 and the pool and the attendant pool recreational facilities. But because of COVID and because of the permitting process or the approval process dealing with Westchester County, the applicant asked us to revise that, or asked the board for a revision so that it may be issued for the following construction completion scenario: 10 apartments for the first floor in building 1, which will be completed, then 14 apartments on the second floor in building 1 to be completed second, and then the completion of building 1 and the completion of building 2. This is specifically so that the applicant needs a temporary certificate of occupancy in order to start showing the apartments. This does not mean that there will actually be people living in those apartments at this point. The other component, then again, we specifically added that that the TCFO issued for building 1 may be revoked or extended if the building inspector determines that the applicant is not diligently pursuing construction of the pool and the attendant recreational facilities, and remaining recreational areas required by site plan approval. Then the other edit really focused on, as part of, let me scroll back up, sorry. As part of the conditions that shall be fulfilled prior to the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy, the applicant requested that we amend, instead of just the swimming pool and attendant recreation facilities, to the maximum extent practical as documented by the applicant. We added the red line associated with that. Then with regards to the conditions shall be fulfilled prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for building 1 or any certificate of occupancy, this really deals with the recreation fees. The recreation fees were $89,000, and that was supposed to be issued prior to the issuance of the TPO for building 1. And the other remainder, $89,000, for the prior to the issuance of the final certificate of occupancy for building 1 and certificate of occupancy for building 2. And so we're recommending that $44,500 for the 10 apartments on the first floor, $44,500 for the subsequent 14 apartments on the second floor, and then the remainder due to the prior to the issuance of the final certificate of occupancy for building 1.
Has the applicant had a chance to see these proposed amendments?
He has. There is one comment he submitted recently, and that's coming up, and that's right here. The final one really deals with the payments to the school district. Originally the recommendation was that they were supposed to provide the full $85,000 immediately, but this is going to be the first $50,000 is due to the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy for building 1, and then the remainder due to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for building 1. And I had temporary certificate of occupancy for building 2 in the project, and the applicant has requested that it become the final certificate of occupancy for building 2 in the project. And that's the one change that was requested.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the board at this time? Jim?
No.
Carolyn?
No.
Gareth?
None.
Donna?
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. So I read over the letters that the applicant sent, and one said that the wetland planting had been completed. I went over and looked, I actually went into Deerfield and I could see like the back area there. And it didn't seem like they were all planted. Like there's supposed to be an oak tree, there's supposed to be like shrubs and stuff. It didn't. So I don't know if that, I know the front trees aren't in and I understand why they aren't, but I didn't know if that's the only things that aren't planted. I don't think the side are planted either on the one side. So I just, what remains of the trees? What hasn't been planted yet? That's a question for the applicant.
Basically, all the wetland plantings have been completed, and we submitted a letter, I think on Monday or Tuesday, from Tim Miller Associates and one of his scientists that said that the wetlands for the first year has been fully completed. And
when was that? When was that done? Because I was just there on Friday, and I definitely didn't see some of the plants, like the trees that were supposed to be there on the back.
Well, they're not wetlands. So
It's right by the stream, like the things right by the stream is not the wetlands planting?
No, the wetlands planting was, we submitted this letter from on the planning, and that was not part of the wetlands. Steve Marino made up a list of everything that was there, and he said end of growing season report 1 year, and this was specifically for the wetlands.
So I guess my question is, I looked at your planting plans. I see an oak tree that's very close to Deerfield in that back parking lot. There's supposed to be an oak tree between the parking lot and the Deerfield. I did not see that oak tree. So my question is it only the front trees that are not planted yet, or there are
other trees that have to be planted on the site that will be planted in the next growing season in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really conditioned. We will get those done when the planting season, and we cannot get that temporary CO for occupancy until those plants are planted or those trees are planted. Based on the planting plan, landscape plan that we have.
Okay, so I did have a question. I'm just confused, but in the letter, and maybe Valerie can help me with this, but it says that, I'm just confused. They're asking now for a temporary for building 1 so they can show the apartments, but then it said that on comment on the letter, comment number 1 under tree and shrubs, it said 2C, remainder of plantings will be completed prior to the receipt of the TCO. Is there 2 different temporary certificate of occupancies?
Yeah, there's one TCO for the building, which will enable us to show the apartments, and then there's a TCO for the apartments, which will allow us to occupy the apartment.
Okay, so it's 2 separate things. Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you. So my other comments are specifically about the lighting. because I did read the letter that one of the residents sent. That it looks like an airport over there. I mean, it's so bright, and I'm just, if we're doing a change, to allow you to show your apartments, I'm wondering if there's room to make that lighting much more reasonable. In Deerfield, maybe it could be a field change. In Deerfield, I went in there at night, and the lights are this beautiful, like kind of warm amber light. And it's very in keeping with like the community. Like it seems rural, even though it's condominiums. It looks, it has a very nice, soft feel to it. Your place has these bright white lights that are they are really bright, and a lot of them. And then so there's the tall ones, and then there's they're not that short, but all around the building, by the building, before the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the building, all the way around, like lots of them are these very bright white lights. And I think it's must be really jarring for the neighbors to have to look at that, because it's so bright. And it just seems to me like it would be not a huge change to change the lights to a nicer, softer color for the tall ones. And then for those small ones, they look about 3 feet high that go all around the sidewalks. If they were changed to a downward facing, shorter light that also was a warmer light and not so glaring, I think it would fit in with the community a lot better. So since we're doing, we're considering a change to your benefit, I think that it would be reasonable to make a change to benefit the surrounding neighbors. So that's my comment.
Basically, the lighting was specified, approved, and gone over by the planning board originally.
Yes, I understand that, but we're making a change that wasn't originally agreed upon.
Yeah, the lighting fixtures were basically more energy efficient than the sodium lighting fixtures, and the color that you see, which is more of a yellow color, this is a whiter color. The bollards are the smaller lights that you see, and then the pole lights are the lighter ones. They do not shine beyond the perimeter of the property. So they're not something that goes beyond the property in any way.
Except you can see it from really far away. It's like all those buildings. I went all around Deerfield last night. went last night because I wasn't gonna be able to do it today. And it's really, really bright. And it's, it's bad for wildlife. It's bad for migrating birds. I mean, there's many levels of concern for something that bright, and not mainly that those would be my main concerns, but also that the surrounding communities. I went into the woods too, and it's almost like you're in like some kind of a, cabins situation at night. They have very, very soft lights, and it's wooded, and it just has such a rural feel to it. And this feels very, very urban and like industrial. And it's, it's a giant building, but if you change the lights, it would be so much more pleasant for the neighborhood. And I think that that's something that should be considered.
Basically very similar to your street lighting that's in front of along Hawks Avenue. All of these lighting now is going to an LED type of lighting that is more energy efficient and with less fixtures than you would need with a sodium.
But you have a lot more fixtures, because I went into Deerfield and those lights seem to be about 100 feet apart, and yours are really close. I mean, you have a lot of fixtures. So I think there's got to be some solution that it's more neighborly.
But I think the lights go off at a certain time at night, The pole lights go off at one time and the bollards stay on for another period of time. And so that during the peak time of darkness and when people would be moving around, the lights are on, but they start turning off as in a segment of time. You know, some of the lights go down a little bit off at 10 and others go off later, so that there isn't that brightness that you may see when all the fixtures are on at once.
I don't know what to say. If you can't change the color, which I'm finding it hard to believe that there's no way to alter that, even with a tinted glass or something. I don't know, but then,
you know, these fixtures
then there's too many fixtures. There's just too many fixtures. It's really bright. I mean, it's I don't even know how people are going to sleep with that much light, you know, unless they're putting blackout curtains. But you know, that's it. I have nothing more to say.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the board?
Did we have specifications on that lighting where it was soft white, less than 3,000 Kelvin, motion sensors? There had to have been something specified in the resolution.
I remember
You're
we
here the
discussed
3,000 kelvins.
at length
Specified.
and that it would be less than 3,000. I'm presuming that that was followed, but then that doesn't jive with the observations or the apparent observations. I haven't seen it myself.
That is correct. You do have in here that the drawing shall be modified to the satisfaction of the town planning consultant, which to show the color of temperature of the outdoor lighting shall not exceed 3,000 kelvins.
They are.
And that's what they are.
So I would assume we'll have to take a look at the, you know, clothes.
So it might be the quantity.
They're basically the same as were specified and on the plan.
Well, maybe we can go out to maybe John can go out to the site and take a look to make sure it's, you know, or I can take a look at the site to make sure that the number of fixtures are there, identified on the site plan, and report back to the planning board.
Yeah, if it's a lot worse than either we or the designers anticipated, you know, we should look at it.
I think everyone should go at night and look. To go out, definitely take a ride out there, and also notice the difference between that and the surrounding community.
Yeah, one is a white light and one is a solar sodium light. So
I understand that, but perhaps if it's so much brighter, then perhaps there's too many fixtures. And I doubt I wasn't on the planning board, but I doubt the planning board intended to have something in somebody's neighborhood that's that bright.
What time do those lights go down? Do you have a specific schedule for them?
They never turn off.
No, that's not correct. I'm sorry. I'm Anthony, Mr. Beldotti's son. Those lights are on 2 circuits right now. So the bollards are on 24 hours and the pole lights are on right now to 7 p.m., but they will be adjusted accordingly to you know, activity on the site, tenants coming home from work, activity there. So it's a safe environment in the parking lot and everywhere else. But right now they are on 2 circuits and they do function independently. So the bollards, small lights are on 24 hours for safety, and the pole lights shut off right now at 7 p.m.
Okay, so if I went out there right now, the pole lights should be all off.
That's correct.
Donna, when did you go out there?
I went out before 7 because I had another meeting last night, but those bollards that he's mentioning, how many on center, like how far apart are they? They look like they're 5 feet apart or something. There's so many.
They vary. They're
There's
about
so
20
many.
feet apart.
And they're 3
20 to
feet high
25
and they're
feet, I
not
would say.
downward facing. They're just bright. So, and when I went there, the back lights, I don't think were even hooked up yet. I don't know. I don't remember that, but it didn't seem like all the lights were hooked up.
The lights are on in back of the building.
It's really bright.
All right. Perhaps the applicant would take a consideration about whether the lights can be somehow dimmed or put on another schedule somehow. But yes, it sounds like a good idea, Valerie, that we send John out there to take a look at whether it fulfills the resolution as it was originally drafted. Other than that, are there any other comments at this time? The question from the board?
From the
Jim?
I might have.
Sarah?
I think I just want to second what Donna suggested for the bollards, if they could be modified to be downward facing. I know that made a difference at the old memory unit out on North State Road. That might be a solution that would be affordable and effective.
We can look at it, but we believe they are downward facing light. They are capped on top with reflectors facing down. They do not emit light upwards.
They're not, usually the sidewalk lighting is like a foot high. These are, well, everybody should go out and look at them.
Right.
You know,
Why don't we
discuss it.
investigate? Why don't we look into this and we'll get back to the board.
And whether there was any motion sensor language
Right.
in the resolution.
Right. And I'll look for that too.
Yeah, that I was just going to say something similar. If some fraction of those could be put on motion sensors, if they're not already, and secondarily, if they could be, if the scheduling of those could be such that if some have to be on 24 hours, if after a certain time they could be lowered in intensity, so just get them on an intensity schedule as well as an on-off schedule as appropriate. Is that possible?
I'd have to look into it, but the way they're set up with the current drivers and the way the lights were purchased, it's not an option for the hardware that's there.
And I would imagine that would be something that your own tenants might appreciate if they could be modified. It might be a matter of, pulling one relay out and putting in another. It might be worth a discussion with the manufacturer anyway.
I can look into it and see what I can find out about it if there is a way to do what you're asking. But as far as I know, the drivers cannot be changed in the existing fixture. So, but I will look into it.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board or the staff? Okay. I take it there are members of the public who are interested in this project?
Jason Mencher, if I may speak.
Sure, but recognize that we're only considering the amendment at this point, okay?
I recognize that. However, having gone to the building department and done my best to educate myself, and the issue that I want to speak on, it ties directly into whether or not a TCO may be granted, and I think that's why it's appropriate to bring up. Secondarily, the issue I'm going to bring up ties nicely into what Mrs. Charette was speaking about, and that is the tree removals that were permitted on the site and subsequently the plantings that were proposed to be done, on which I believe a TCO is contingent. I can make reference to the documents, but if I may share my screen, that may make it my issue clearer. May I share my screen? If not, I will speak through it without that benefit.
Mr. Chair, he's asking you if you can
I'm
share
asking
your
for permission.
screen.
Oh, Sandy, can you control sharing the screen?
I believe he would share his screen and we would all see it.
I was just seeking permission, so If I
Okay,
have
go ahead.
permission. Is everyone able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So this, I went down, this is filed online. This is the tree preservation plan. I live in this unit right here.
Wait, you're showing
you need to-
You're seeing your desktop.
Yeah.
I am so sorry. Perhaps.
That's
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm little new to Zoom. Are you now seeing the proper screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I live on Deer Run. It's right here. We're against the property line.
I'm not seeing anything other than your desktop.
I'm so sorry. Perhaps
I
it's,
see it. I see the plan.
Okay, now I see it.
I see
Yeah,
it.
we see the
Okay.
plan.
Okay. So I live here. I moved in about 3 years ago. At the time, I knew construction was going up, and this is not a matter of NIMBYism. I'm actually an urban planning student and a real estate attorney, and I think this is a good development, and I think the Balducci's have every intention of being good neighbors. That said, these trees right here, 3 large trees that broke the property line nicely, one of them has since been removed, 1 or 2 of them. Now, I don't know if that was because of a need or an amendment to this that I'm not aware of, but it's now created a large opening here. In the tree survey, again, you can see where these were intended to remain. However, these ones that break the property line between the 2 properties and would address that lighting issue, light coming into our neighborhood from some of these downward facing lights, might remediate it. So going on, the landscaping plan, and I'm sorry I had to take a photo at the building department. The landscaping plan contemplated that a number of trees, in addition to the trees that remained, would be placed along here. It's a rather steep hill. I believe they leveled the property so that they could build the 2 structures. So from the end of my street, I'm looking up about 60 feet to get to the roof of that building. So the former large trees that were there broke the lighting issue and broke the property line. What has actually been planted, again, this is another photo of the property line, what would be planted. What has been planted is this. So if you're looking from the end of my street, I'm so sorry, the photo's not as large as I would have liked. 1, 2, 3, 4 small pine trees, and I think 1, 2, 3 trees behind here. They don't conform to the size that was supposed to be done per the landscaping plan. They don't conform to the scale that they were indicated to be at. And beyond that, I don't know who's familiar with what this property was, but it was a heavily wooded property. So the removal of a tree right about here that was supposed, or maybe it's here now, that's the stump, that was supposed to stay on the property. And additionally, the lack, I guess, of maybe not yet completing the work. I'm not saying they don't intend to do it. It's just that, as you can see, this is what the property line is between a rather large structure and the edge of our development. The downward facing lights, the little, I guess, walking lights, bollards are here. I can see them right now out my window. Had the plantings been done, I think that might have been remediated, and maybe they intend to be done, but I'd like to understand why certain trees that were not supposed to be removed have been removed since this resolution was passed, I'm sorry, on December 21, 2016. And the component I'm speaking about says the building inspector shall inform the board of an application for TCO, and the board reserves the right to make a field inspection to, among other things, ensure or see if there need to be any modifications to landscaping. So a question is, has the board made that field inspection and determined that the plantings and everything and the tree preservation has been done in accordance with the filed plans? That's my first question.
Can I just?
Yes, please.
I just want to make note of the TCO. The TCO. There's subtle differences that what the applicant is asking for. The applicant is asking for, just so that you're aware, the applicant is asking for a TCO for the first, I believe, 10 apartments on the first floor and then 14 apartments on the second floor, not to have residents occupy the building.
I understand.
That being said, the building inspector will probably go out to the planning board to ask them for any additional concerns or whatever when they're looking to have a temporary certificate of occupancy to potentially occupy that building or actually have residents move in. So I just wanted to clarify that. But then
I absolutely understand there's two TCOs still, and I read the reasons why, so that pursuant to their insurance, they're able to show the units. The way I'm reading this approval doesn't split out the TCOs, probably because it's something that maybe wasn't contemplated at the time. But nevertheless, this is an approval that the board issued that says the board is entitled to, not required to, go out and make that inspection. So my question again is, it sounds like that hasn't been made. So then a question to the applicant is, the trees that are specified on the existing conditions plan that were supposed to be preserved, 2, I think, of the 3 large ones have been removed. Did they speak to that?
Yes, I don't know if you remember, there were quite a few trees that were an unfortunate result of the last few large storms we had and have come down. One came down on our building. There were a few on Deerfield that also came down, and those trees were removed at that point. Pictures were taken of those trees, and the building department was notified by email that they were down on the property, these large trees that did cause some damage to the building. Like I said, there were a few on the property line that was shared by Deerfield and ourselves. I think maybe one of them was also on our property, these large spruce trees.
Okay, so to that point, and I understand if it's out of your control, had them having come down and it's a safety issue, for the benefit of your future residents and us, do you have an intention to amend your plantings to kind of make up for the trees that have come down? Because as you can see from the photos I showed, there's really no foliage or anything, even when the trees that are there are in bloom. And as I said, I don't believe, and of course this is for the board and then the town planner to determine, I don't believe the planting is done in accordance with what was promised to be done. There's also supposed to be shrub masses as a buffer mitigation because it's a steep slope. And by scale, they look like they're supposed to go about 30 feet long and 15 feet deep. And I think there's about 4 small shrubs, maybe less than my size, and I'm pretty short, that are there. I understand things take time to grow, but it just, there's absolutely no separation between the properties. I don't think the trees that were planted are in accordance with what was supposed to be done. And the lighting issue Ms. Charette raised, I can see from my second floor window, I'm still below the height of those downward facing bollards because of how high up the property was, I guess, re-leveled to be built. So unless there's any sort of significant plantings there, it's just going to remain an issue, not for a year or two, but until the 4 trees or 6 trees that have been put in are full grown. So again, I think this is a good development. I think it's, I believe the Balducci's constructed the home I live in now, and it's a great development over here. I just want to make sure that, you know, the nature and character of this area, which is wooded and trees, is preserved, and that if a large structure is going to be, you know, inhabited by a few hundred people next door, that there is some kind of separation along the property line through foliage and other plantings. And thank you, everyone in the board, for hearing what I have to say. I appreciate it.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. Those trees, I know it's hard to judge from some of the scale, but there is a planting log that has all the tree heights. Those pines, I believe, are only 8 to 10 foot pines, and they will take some time to grow to block out any light or sight. There are also some other trees there, those 3 trees, and if you give me a second, I'll see if I can look them up. But either way, we did plant an extra tree there, so there are 4 trees now along that side.
Sweet gum.
They are yes, they are somewhere from probably 12 to 14 feet tall.
You mean when they grow in?
They're right now 12 to 14 feet.
I mean, I'm not going to walk onto your property, but perhaps it's my vantage. I don't know that they are. I guess a point beyond that is, do you intend to plant what you have set out, or given the change of circumstances, large trees coming down, are you willing to entertain further planting? Our project, our property manager did reach out. I don't know to which of the gentlemen, and we were told kind of summarily that there'll be more planting without any sort of indication. I just don't think what's been done is in accordance with maybe what was understood to be done. And I take issue with that as a neighbor. And I want to be a good neighbor, and I want the developers to be good neighbors. I think that's a reasonable request.
I do understand that. There are more plantings to be done. Some of the plantings are going to be spring plantings just because the availability and the plants do a lot better in the spring than the fall when you plant them, certain types. We plan on fulfilling everything in this plan. As a little side note, I understand that you could see some of the lights, but believe it or not, from our property looking at it, you also see lights from the neighbor's property the same way. So
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
Experience we're both going to share, and maybe down the road we can both work together where if these affect you or me, we can come together, the board from Deerfield and ourselves, and maybe figure out some things we can do in the future once this project really gets completed and we tweak all the little odds and ends.
Well, I guess my issue is that once a TCO is issued and then the C of O, the incentives to do plantings and invest further monies in landscapings are kind of minimized. And that's why I'm bringing it up now before this TCO is issued. And to the extent there were more plantings, I saw them out doing something this summer. I don't know why that might not have been done this summer, but you're seeking a TCO now, and then you're going to subsequently seek one, I assume, to fill those apartments that you want to be able to show. So what's to actually hold you to a general agreement to maybe come together with the board? And I guess I'll ask the planning board what I can do as a neighboring citizen regarding what I think the plans say and what they might actually say. Or is that something that when you send someone out, they will look at one against the other, what's there versus what's filed with the town? I don't know how the process works.
Well, we will definitely plant what's on the plan that we're responsible for.
I'm hearing that you will comply with filed obligations. I'm also explaining the large trees that came down are a significant change in circumstance, and I'm asking you, just like Ms. Charette was asking you about maybe compromising on the lights, since the town and the board are going to potentially give you a TCO that's different than the request that you're being made, to come together with us and try to figure out a better way to address this issue.
I would like to say that we have tried to cooperate with our neighbors for many, many months, okay? In essence, there was a large tree that fell on our building. We asked them, and it was in danger of coming down. We asked them if we could move it. It was on the property line. If we could cut it down at our expense. There was a very quick no, and that tree eventually fell on our building, causing us a very, very large amount of damage, okay? We have asked numerous times to remove bad trees. The one tree that you're talking about that fell down, we would love to put another tree there, okay? But we're very concerned about the working relationship between our neighbors and us. That's we're so cautious.
Mr. Beldotti?
Yes.
Yeah. My name's John Martin. I live in Deerfield on Fawn Court. I'm also a board member. I have no knowledge of anybody turning you down for bringing a tree down that fell, and I'd like to know about that because I don't know anything about that.
Did you see that? Did you remember that large tree falling on the building?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
That was one that we requested that if we could take it down. No one would allow us. So there's been issues throughout, but we want to be good neighbors. We always have been good neighbors. We own properties and we keep our properties. This is one of our properties. We will do the best we can in fulfilling all of our obligations. But there's just so many things we can do. As a gentleman said, it takes a working relationship and trust between one and another. And that's all we're saying, okay? We're not saying that we're skipping out. We're gonna plant these trees. We'll look at the lighting, okay? But it's it's a two-way street. We got an approval. We're going to comply with the approval. Okay. Beyond that, we'll work with you. We'll work with anybody if there is an issue, but we can't change the plan as approved right now.
Mr. Chairman, may I suggest that I know because some of the comments I think are between neighbors a little bit too. Maybe we just request if ask anybody else if they have any other comments. We can take notes of all the comments that come in, and then the board can discuss which comments they're interested in the building department to look further into, and then which ones we want to have the applicant come back and address next month.
In fact, since you have a member of the board of Deerfield there, it may behoove your folks to go and have a consolidated list so that we can look at them all at once rather than sit here repeated the same issues.
Yeah, we don't want to do that either. And just for informational purposes, I'm a contractor too, and I work a lot in New York City. I'm very aware of code and contractual obligations. I deal with that all the time, so I'm very sensitive to this. I certainly don't want to bring up anything that makes a mess for the builders next door. I understand what they have to go through. We just want them to be concerned about our particular needs here. We don't want incursions into the property, which would be very easy from there. People are going to have visitors there that they can't control. And we want to be assured that that's not going to spill over into here or make a mess in any other way. And that's really the basic concern here. Aside from the obvious stuff, the lighting is a bit intense, or there's probably a better word for that. But I'm sure we can deal with those issues. You know, we're just more concerned, I guess, general security and safety of the community. But you're right. We will gather as a board and bring to Mr. Baldati our requests without making a mess of it.
Might I suggest you also provide the planning board your issues of concern as well?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'll see that they do that.
Who should that be transmitted to? And if a member of the community who's not on the board wants to set out in the letter their concerns, who should that be directed to? The chairman, Mr. Chin, is that?
Yeah, directing it to the board, the planning board is fine to me, or Sandy would be fine as well. The issue, of course, is just to basically try to streamline the process so that we can get all the complaints or any issues out in the open, and so the applicant actually can review them as well as the board can review them in an efficient manner, rather than sit here and wait until it becomes 11 o'clock and we're still talking about the same issues over and over again.
Right. We don't.
I don't think we're talking about the same issues. I think we've actually been somewhat streamlined, given the other, neighborhood had 15 people speaking about their issues. So I don't know, maybe I ran long in what I was saying, but it is of concern to me and neighbors of mine on my street who couldn't be on this call, but asked me to voice their concerns as well.
Right. I think we're just trying to, we're not trying to streamline or cut off your public comments. It's just a matter of, I think the board wants to hear all the public comments as opposed to you and the applicant going back and forth. I think it's really going to be beneficial for the board to hear all the public comments, and then they can ask the board can ask the applicant to respond to the different public comments.
Sure.
So
Okay.
are there any new issues that members of the public want to raise here at this time? Are there any other members of the public wish to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak. I don't live in Deerfield, I live in the woods. And I will probably not say anything new, but I will keep it short and will add the point that whatever my comments are would obviously not come in through Deerfield's board. I want to reinforce Donna Sharrett's comments about the lighting. I noticed them the other night on one of my walks, and they are truly obnoxious, is the word I would use. I think we have LED lighting. We recently in the woods changed our lighting to LED lighting. It is not that bright. It's brighter than I like, but it's not as bright as what I saw across the street. So that's the end of that comment. I'm just saying it's a reinforcement of something seen. The other thing also goes to the trees. I care about the front as the folks in care about the back. And while I understand that one cannot plant anything at this time of year, I would point out that it is part of the landscape plan, which is part of the requirements for the C of O, that that landscaping in front be done to screen the buildings because they are very apparent and very obvious, as well as all the lighting, and that before you issue maybe not this version, but the occupancy C of Os, the real occupancy C of Os, that landscaping should be completed as agreed and as the board determined, and that no pass should be given for that. And I think those are my two comments. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak?
Yes, my name is Beth Wise. I also live in the woods. With the Parth Knolls, looks like it's getting to completion. I was quite disturbed to notice that the road that is opposite the road into Hawks Avenue for where we live, it looks like that's not going to be closed up, which was what we had originally been told. And I'm very concerned about the traffic that's going to be generated when the world gets back to normal and we are back trying to get out of the buildings at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. What's going to happen with that? I don't want to eventually have a traffic light there, but I was told that that entrance was going to be closed.
May I? That is an emergency exit for fire only. That will be, there'll be a fence across that, and there'll be special pavers, a gate installed, so only the fire trucks can get in. And there will be special pavers put in the front of that. We did not do that at this time, but it will be done prior to the occupancy of building number 1 by any of tenants. That will have a gate in front of it, and it will only be an emergency in access before the fire department.
So just out of curiosity then, how will someone from the fire department be able to access the gate differently from a regular?
There's a lock on it, a special lock called the knock box that allows the fire department into that area.
So we will not be competing to get onto the same road from the same place?
No, the primary entrance is the northerly entrance up at the top of the hill.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other members of the public wish to speak or comment? I don't see anyone else at this point. Valerie, Christy, what should we be doing at this point?
So I'll talk in terms of public comment that we just received. I mean, we can go back to the building department and have them take a look at the landscaping and also the lights. And then we have a couple of weeks before the next planning board meeting. So if there are any other additional comments that come in, we'll pass them on to the board and we'll take a look at those. And then in terms of the public hearing, I'll turn that over to Christine. She can talk to you about that.
Yeah, given that the discussion tonight and that the board seems inclined to receive follow-up and additional information from the consultants and the staff, as well as the public, probably best off leaving the public hearing open and just adjourning it to your January 20th meeting.
Very good. Okay, so I would encourage the public to send in their comments by written as well. I mean, obviously welcome to join in the next meeting, but written in comments would make it more efficient for us to be able to understand them. Do I have a motion from any of the board members on adjournment?
Yeah, I just want to make a request. I found that the photograph that Mr. Mencher showed of the screening or lack thereof was very important to the question, and I would ask that he submit that with his written comments. Also, I don't have the planting plan in front of me, so I don't know, but I would observe that those 4 trees would take, 30 years before they grew together and become an effective visual blockage. And if in the current plan there is nothing that's supposed to go in between those, I really think something should be done to mitigate that. That seems really unacceptable to me. And perhaps that was caused by the trees coming down, which was out of control of the developers. But since we're not through with this process and they are asking for new considerations, I think much more effective visual blockage there would be a reasonable quid pro quo.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn this matter to the public hearing until January?
I'm sorry. Is there a measurable way that we can address the lighting issue? Because there was definitely conversation prior to the resolution that there would be no light pollution leaving the site, and it was measured on the drawings in a certain way. Is there some way to verify that and to make sure that if we discussed motion sensors that they're going to be used, and verification that the light fixtures are below 3,000 Kelvin, and basically what we specified is what's being placed on site?
I believe we're going to be sending John out there for that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
We'll have John go out there, or myself, and we'll take a look at the lighting. We'll start off with the lighting plan and clearly the number of lights, and then from there we'll go to the next steps as to whether the kelvins, the direction of the lights, that type of thing.
The intensity of the lights may be adjustable also, not just the color temperature.
Yep.
Very good. Applicant, I assume you heard all those comments?
Yes.
Good. I look forward to seeing your response to that. Again, can I have a motion to adjourn this public hearing?
So moved.
I make them, okay, I second.
Hey, Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gareth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night, folks. The next item on the agenda is Sidon? 49 Croton Dam Road. What happened to my... Oh, okay. Yes, architectural review for a new garage addition and site amendment. Applicant here? Ah, there we go. All right, Mr. Sidon. Okay, Valerie, what's the status on this one?
This is the first time this application's become before the planning board.
Okay, I noticed that there were some materials that submitted late on this. Do we have enough to actually work on this right now?
Yeah, so the materials were actually submitted in response to my memo that went out earlier this week. So the application itself is complete, and the applicant is able to probably present their plan. The materials that were sent out today were really just follow-up to my initial memo, but for the most part, the application is, complete, and I just had minor comments on the lighting. So I'll leave it at that. And if you want to have the applicant present his plans, I think he's ready to do so.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board right now before the applicant makes the presentation? No? Okay. Oscar, you want to fill us in here? Give us a quick overview?
Me or somebody else?
Well, what are you asking for?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear who you asked. I guess you said applicant. I'm sorry. So we're looking to do two things on our property. Right now, we have a detached two-car garage that we've lived with for years and years and years. And if you look at the weather outside, you could probably see why we are pretty much finished having a detached two-car garage. So what we're looking to do is make that into an attached four-car garage. And we do have more than two cars because we have 3 children that are still kind of with us because they're all in school. So we do have multiple cars. So a 4-car garage is very necessary, but we would like to attach it to the house, and we've submitted drawings to do so. In addition to that, we're also looking just to push the garage back a little bit just to create some additional garage storage. And then after that, put on a second floor recreation room, just one big, huge recreation room that my daughter's a dancer, so to kind of like do a little dance exercise up there, exercise room, recreation room, game room kind of thing on the second floor. That's pretty much it for the 4-car garage, which I will call that to be more on the north side or the right side of the property. On the left side of the property, we're looking to put a small detached building, lack of a better expression, which I've seen on Facebook all the time. They call it a shed bar. So it's basically just having a social area, which is detached, which we'd like to also put a bathroom in, not a full bath, a half bath in there, and also make sure that it's a handicap accessible bathroom. My mom had passed away in July, and she was in a wheelchair for years, and it was very hard for her to get in and out of the house to go to the bathroom. And so we wanted to put a handicap bathroom out there, and then also put a hot tub next to it that actually has access right to the shed bar. And the back of that would be pretty much a nice wall that would create an incredible amount of privacy for the inside of our property. And I know Valerie had brought up lighting, and which I wanted to talk about a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, we were looking to not put any lights onto the back of that wall, motion sensor or otherwise, because we really do not want to bother our neighbors with any lights going on from, I'll call it the back wall of the shed and the hot tub. We're looking to keep that as dark as possible, as to not really shed any light on our neighbors. So this would actually create a privacy wall from our neighbors to the rest of the interior part of our patio property. And we also already have pretty much almost 80 to 90 trees, pine trees, on each side of our property that I had planted 2 years ago to create natural barriers on both sides of our properties. Because from what I was always been told, the best neighbors always have is when you have a fence. But regular fences are kind of ugly, so we did it with pine trees, and they're already growing and doing very well. They're probably already up about 1.5 feet or 2 feet since we planted them, which are great. We're also, I'm sorry, and just for the last thing, we're also, for finishing work, I guess to call it, we're literally just going to match it up with everything that we have. So we have pictures of the siding of the garage. We're going to match the siding of the garage and the lighting of the garage and everything, which is already there. Matter of fact, about 2 years ago, I had to replace the 2 overhead spotlights on my garage because they had just broken or burned out. And when I bought new ones, instead of buying 2, I bought 4 in anticipation of wanting to do this, just to make sure that literally everything completely matched up. I've actually already even created a packet together and brought it to my neighbors on the north side, on the right side where the garage is, because I know I'm going to have to go in front of the zoning board, and they've already even signed letters of support for it. They have no issue with it at all.
Okay. Any comments from, any additional comments from the staff at this point? Dan?
Yeah, we just had a couple of minor comments, which I'll just run through with the board quickly. Yeah, and this just relates to the site issues. We're asking that some basic erosion control be installed around the site. I think the applicant touched on the issue of the variance. The freestanding garage had previously been treated as an accessory structure. So now with it being attached to the primary residence, it has to adhere to those setbacks, and that triggers the appearing before the zoning board. We're asking that the septic system and any underground utilities be shown. And this is to ensure that the setbacks from the new foundation are being adhered to, that there's no potential problem. And likewise, the water services and anything else out there that might be a consequence, to just make sure that the new structures are not interfering with those things.
Dan, just to let you know, the answer is yes. We'll put all those on the plans. I think that's a great idea. We should have done that. But just to let you know, all those items are actually in our front. Our septic system is actually in our front yard, and we're looking to do everything in the backyard. And all the utilities, obviously, that come up to the street, to the house, is all in our front yard. So 100% of the construction that we're looking to do does not interfere with any utilities whatsoever, or septic systems, or water systems, or anything.
All right, and then finally, I forget if I said that we got to put in some stormwater improvements to address the additional runoff.
Okay.
So some dry wells or infiltrators in the back will probably get that done.
That would be fine. I have no problem with dry wells. So in order to specify what you would need with that, would that be something that my architect Jamola would know the size of what you're looking for? Are there any recommendations from the engineer, or?
Yeah, no, I can go through with your architect, and we'll have that addressed before your next return to this board.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any additional comments from the staff? Christy?
I was just curious about the timing of when the applicant is going to be going to the zoning board, because generally the process would be to get the zoning board approval before coming to this board for either site plan approval, or in this case, ARB approval.
Yeah, I was told, so this is new for me because I've never really had to do this before. So what I was told is I had to do ARB first, then you guys would send me to the zoning board, and then after the zoning board, I'd have to come back. So that's why I did it in this order, because that's what Jamola told me I needed to do.
You double check with John Hamilton that you needed the zoning variance. And the only reason why I bring that up is because it's and Dan, you might have better knowledge of this than I do on this particular situation, but the one side yard, he meets both side yards, and the one side yard meets the minimum. But if you look at the zoning table, the bulk regulations, it specifically refers to one side yard and both side yards, and not two side yards. So technically his other side yard meets the one side yard, and the both side yards, his property meets the both side yards.
But I think what the issue is the existing garage is 12.9 feet off the property line, the side yard. And previously it was treated as an accessory building, which would have been appropriate, where it would have been 10 feet. So now that it becomes part of the main house, that's sort of now it has to meet the 14-foot setback.
Right.
So I could circle back to John on that.
And my question is, because some communities consider one side yard, meaning one of the two side yards needs to meet the 14 feet, and the other two, and then the both side yards need to, both side yards.
We can get clarification from John on that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it would be the building inspector's interpretation. But in terms of the process, if the applicant does have to go to the zoning board, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to come to in this case, the ARB first, and and get a sense of what the board thinks of what you're proposing before you go to the zoning board. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit through the process if you do have to go to the zoning board. It is a type 2 action under secret, so there's no coordinated review that's necessary or anything like that. But it's just something to keep in mind because the zoning board would schedule a meeting for this application when you're ready.
Yeah, just to
I would just,
clarify,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan.
just to clarify, so on the main structure, on the other side, it's 45 feet 3 inches on the other side of the property. So they absolutely meet the combined criteria of adding up the 2 side yards, because, you know, I think that's how John would compute it based upon the main structure, which is now the house plus this connected garage structure. But again, we'll just clarify with John, but it would appear that the garage going from an accessory structure to a primary structure is what triggers it.
Well, how often, and again, I'm pretty new to this. I sell a lot of real estate, but I haven't had to do this before ever. How often does the zoning board meet, or do they just meet when there's stuff to talk about, or do they have a regular standing meeting?
They have quasi-designated meeting dates, which is the first and third Monday of the month, but they don't get a lot of applications, and so they don't regularly meet on those days unless something comes in. So when you get something in, we would kind of work from when you have a completed application, we would kind of work our way backwards with Sandy from how much time is needed to notice, and also the availability of the board members, because the chairman and the board likes to try to have a full complement when they do have meetings. So I would say once you get in a completed application, based upon timing, it would probably be 3 to 4 weeks. Does that sound about right?
Okay. And then after that, assuming, you know, I'm always going to assume the positive, assuming that I would be able to get approval from that, especially since the north right side neighbors, which this is who would impact pretty much only on the right side. You know, I already have some supporting documentation for that. So assuming that would get passed, what would be the next step? Then coming back to the planning board with the corrections and the, you know, statements of things that I already have in writing of what you're looking for, come back again with those items?
Well, it's really up to the planning board based upon their discussion tonight. I don't think there's really been much substantive discussion of what's being proposed. So maybe that dialogue should happen before we start getting ahead of ourselves in terms of what happens next as part of this board's review. Okay. I was just trying to clarify the need to coordinate the zoning board into that process.
All right. Well, I'll make an appointment to speak to John Hamilton about this to see if how he feels about whether I need to go to zoning, and if I do, go through that process.
Okay, so at any rate, planning board members, have you had a chance to take a look at the submission? What do you guys think? Jim?
I don't have any issues with what's being presented. I think it's going to, the majority of the work is addressing Dan's issues.
Donna?
So it looks, you know, so it looks nice, you know, that you're matching with the house and everything, and the light fixtures. I think that's something you just sent, because I don't have it here in the hard copies. It must be in the sent digitally. They look really very attractive. So I'm imagining, I just have I'm not sure exactly where they're placed. Are they, so are they on the front of the garage? So would they impact the neighbor in any way?
No, because the new lights, the lights that we're looking to add, the only 2 lights I'm really looking to add, well, let me take a step back. The lights that I have on the garage currently are 2, I think they're called gooseneck lights, 1 over each garage bay. And all the way on the left, so I'll call it the south front corner of the garage, we have a motion sensor light. So what would really happen is, since we're really going in towards the property, we're going south of the property, away from the neighbors, we'd be adding 2 more gooseneck lights, but that would be going away from the neighbors.
Right.
Pretty much moving that motion sensor light from the corner that it is now, moving that 2 bays over to the left, again, away from the neighbors. So pretty much all the lighting would be going away from the neighbors towards the middle, more towards the middle of my property.
Right. So the landscaping is, I mean, I guess this is a question for Valerie. Is this an issue that was screening something that should have been considered for this project? And he just did it preemptively? Is that, am I interpreting that correctly, or?
No, I think
or
he's
it was
just
not
known that,
necessary?
I think he's, in the ARB review, the board, part of the requirements or part of the requirements for submission is the applicant supposed to identify what screening is being implemented. And Mark Seiden is saying that they already have screening on site, so no additional screening is necessary.
Right, so we can't comment on it because it's already in? Is that what it is? Because this is
Yeah,
a
I mean, it's been
screening-
in for a couple of years, yes.
Right, because it's a screening that I would, as everyone here knows other than the applicant, I would definitely be opposed to putting in a monocrop of 180 of the same trees and that are evergreen and in a deciduous area. So, but I'm guessing that it's just a shame because the building is really attractive. So, but I'm guessing that's not an issue for the ARB because it's already in place. Correct?
Right, I'm right. The vegetation would not be an issue. If for some reason you felt existing vegetation was not sufficient enough, and you wanted additional plantings, that would be.
I think 160 or whatever it is is a little overboard, actually, particularly in the front where it doesn't even matter the screening and it's not consistent with the roadway. But yeah, okay, that's it.
Gareth?
And regarding the screening, just wanted to ask the applicant for clarification on the discussions you've had with the neighbor. Did you say that they have no issue with what you're proposing?
Correct. I actually sent that to Sandy. I actually got it yesterday. So Sandy actually has them. If you want to do a screen share, I can actually show you what I gave to them and what they signed if you would like to do that, or Sandy can just email them to you, whatever you prefer. But what I did is I made a little mini 8.5 by 11 plan of showing on the survey what was in one color, what was pre-existing, in another color, what I was adding. And then on each of the architect plan, what was pre-existing and what was adding, how I was going from 12.9 feet to 12.3 feet on the closest rear north corner of the garage. So they got, I don't know how many pages, so Sandy has it, but a 5 or 6 or 7 page packet that I gave, that they still have. It's not like I showed it and took it away. They have it. And then I had just a letter that was written up by my attorney, pretty much, a non-legalese, but letter, and they each signed it in about 3.5 minutes. They were like, yeah, they have no problem with that. We get, my neighbors and I get along very well.
Oh, that's great to know. And am I remembering the drawing correctly, that the addition that it will extend behind your garage, which the face of which will be toward that neighbor, does not have a window. It's a it's a spa of some kind. Is that right?
Yeah, we did all we did all siding on that part for a reason, which again was not to create additional light, for our neighbor, because we're really doing a second floor. I mean, right now my current garage, even though it doesn't have a second floor. Matter of fact, to be honest with you, I've never even been up there. There's pull attic stairs to go up there. In the 20, I don't know how many years I've been here, 20 something years I've been here. I've never been into that area of the garage. So Jimmy Hoffa could be there. It could be really interesting. But we have since it's a Tudor, it's an extremely high pitched roof right now. So when we just kind of made it longer in order to put a second floor there, we purposely didn't put a window there only for the reason of why create more light for our neighbor. If it's something that someone really insisted on to put in, I'd put it in. But we purposely did not put it in because I didn't want to disturb a neighbor with light.
Right. Okay, that's good. That satisfies my concern there. Otherwise, I like what I see.
Carolyn?
I think it looks great.
Okay. Jesus, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
No, no question. I look at all the stuff and it looks good. I'm fine with it.
I have no comments at this time. Christy, Valerie, what are the next steps on this matter?
Well, I guess we'll look at the materials that the applicant submitted, right, Valerie?
Right. I mean, I think, it's ultimately going to need a public hearing for the ARB. So assuming that this application is going to need zoning board review, I would assume, will we hold off the public hearing, Christy, until zoning board looks at it, or do you want to open it, or can the board open it up for public hearing and just keep it open until the zoning board finishes its review?
Yeah, I mean, if the board feels comfortable with the way the application, the condition the application is in right now, given that the next meeting isn't for 4.5 weeks or some odd, if the board wanted to direct for a public hearing to be opened in January, then you could always, if the applicant hasn't gotten to the zoning board yet, if that's determined to be necessary, the board can always just carry it over till the next meeting if it has to.
Because if John doesn't see the need for zoning, then they can address Dan's issues by the next meeting, then we can pretty much handle everything and close it out at the next meeting if we're comfortable with the ARB issues.
Right.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Are there any members of the public who are interested in this matter? Just to ask. Sandy? Anybody raising their hand?
No, I don't think anyone is here for this matter.
Okay. All right. So can I have a motion to have it put down for a public hearing in January?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Gareth?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Jesus, are you in favor of it?
Yes.
Okay. I vote yes as well. So we'll see you back in January. Hopefully, we'll see what the zoning board has to do with this. But otherwise, happy holidays.
Do you guys know the date of that meeting already, the January meeting?
20th.
20th.
Good night.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care.
Good night, guys.
Next item on the agenda is the learning experience, 530 North State Road, tree removal field change.
So this particular application is coming before the board. Sorry, I froze there. I'm back again. This particular application is really, John Hamilton looked at what the applicant is proposing to do, or actually the property owner is proposing to do. He believes it is a field change, but we just wanted to provide you the information and just kind of make you aware of the field change. It requires removal of 2 trees on the site.
Right, but the applicant is planning to replace those 2 trees, correct?
Is
the applicant here?
Yeah, this is Jerry Casario.
That is
I'm
correct.
a site engineer. I can address that. Yes, we are proposing to replace those trees on site with 2 similar species that were previously approved for the tree planting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the staff? Dan? Christy?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Donna?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. So first of all, you guys did a really great job on this. I mean, I had to look at it. I thought I was misinterpreting. It said a nesting box, and I thought that was a new name for some kind of light fixture. And then I realized it was bird nesting boxes that you put in, which, I mean, And then you have fish passage stuff in the stream, and it's like, you guys are rock stars.
Thank you.
We should frame this and show it to lots of other people. But I did have a request, because on the side, that's, I guess, near that Taekwondo or whatever that is over there. What is that?
The
Is it-
martial arts.
Martial arts, okay.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not a martial arts person. It's really narrow over there, and you have white spruce land and holly and everything. So I was wondering, like, instead of the two species that you were planting, which is serviceberry and the white spruce, the ones that you're replacing in the front there, if you wouldn't just put the hollies there, like put the holly that you were going to put in the corner and just move it over. It's just there's just not enough space. It looks like it's maybe 4 feet or something. Like, what is the width of that space?
It's more like 6 feet. Just so I understand, are you saying instead of adding two?
Well, the white spruce is going to get 60 feet wide. Everybody, all things considered. So it just seems like it would just, instead of having those plants there, like you could move that one over. It's just never going to grow there. So I was saying two, instead of putting the serviceberry and the cedar or spruce that you're planting in the front there, if you put 2 hollies there. So you have 1 holly, I believe, there. Oh no, you have
No.
I don't have it in front of me. It's like the hornbeam or something.
Yes.
Or a hop hornbeam.
But just so I understand, you're asking to relocate 2 from the side of the building to the front.
Well, all hollies, yeah, not the white cedar. So you have 3 you're going to move 1 and then put the other 2 that you have to replace. So you'd have 3 hollies, because then you have the red twigs right there. So it'd be actually really gorgeous in the wintertime. And there would be space for it, more space. I mean, 6 feet is, in 2 years, it's not gonna fit, it's just.
Move 1 holly and add.
That's my comment. And then, so, I mean, I think, I don't know what you do with the rest of the white cedars that you got planted over there. I'm not really sure how they're gonna succeed, but I wasn't part of this process at that point. And the only other thing I would say is, because I really hate leaf blowers and weed whackers and all that stuff, is you've got grass, like in that 6-foot area, you're putting all the trees and then you're putting lawn in. Like, it doesn't, I'm not sure how that would work. I'm not sure if at this point, if there could be a field change and just do mulch. So you didn't have to bring, because once you give a guy or person, could be a woman also, I guess, a weed whacker around trees, the trees usually die. They usually get killed. So it'd be great to not put that grass shoved into these little tiny spaces. So that would be my comments.
If the board is okay, I don't think we have an issue changing that out from.
Okay, both sides, because they're just, 6 feet. It's not enough for a lawn. It doesn't make any sense. So other than that, that landscaping plan in the back, it's unbelievable. So kudos.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Jim, any questions or comments?
I'm good.
Jesus, do you have any questions or comments?
No, sir.
Gareth?
No.
Carolyn?
No.
Okay, I'm okay with it at this point. Taking into account Donna's comments, I would always defer to her on those issues.
Okay.
What do we have to do at this point then? Valerie?
There's nothing you have to do. It's just really just, we just wanted you to be aware of this in case, happen to be driving down the street and you see the trees coming down and,
We appreciate the applicant giving us such notice.
Very good.
Okay, so thank you for appearing for us and giving us the presentation. Have a happy holidays.
Thanks so much. You do the same.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, next items are our minutes. Have we had a chance to read the October 21st minutes?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to consider them?
I make the motion.
Okay. Second, anybody?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? Any changes to the October 21st minutes? Anybody? Nope. Okay,
Nope.
so can we have a motion to accept them then?
I make the motion to accept them.
Second,
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
Gareth,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Carolyn?
yes.
Okay, so the October 21st minutes are accepted. Have we had a chance to look at the November 18th minutes?
Yes. No problems.
Hey.
with-
Yeah,
Right.
no problems here either.
Okay. About the only thing I would mention on the November 18th one is on the Rinaldi subdivision. There was a comment that the applicant had met with the Torview members. And actually, I sort of remember that even though that may have happened, I think what the actual statement was that the Torview members had shown up at the public meeting and had given comments and statements. So with that change, other than that, I have no other changes to the minutes. Okay, Sandy?
Yes, I'll change that.
Okay, great. So could I have a motion to accept the November 18th minutes as amended?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Jim? How do
Yes.
you vote? Carolyn?
I wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, sorry. Donna?
Yes.
Gareth?
Yes.
Okay, I accept them as well as amended. Okay, that's everything on the agenda, I believe. Any other matters?
Just happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. And thanks everyone for hanging in so long. This
Yeah.
was a little bit
I thought it
longer
was
than
going to be
normal.
short because Rinaldi adjourned. I thought it was going to be short.
Yeah, did we hear anything from Severn, the Fuller?
Oh, Fussell? Fussell?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So the he decided to rip out the stairs.
Ooh.
So he still owes John Hamilton architectural plans on the actual like patio and retaining wall. And he might be back for a steep slopes permit because John believes it will, has been, developed on steep slopes. So we're waiting to finalize that. So you might see this particular that particular property back in front of your board. And then he also owes there's some additional like back taxes as well as some additional work for the street and street repair. So those are still open-ended before he can get his certificate of occupancy. So that's where we are.
Can I ask you about Armstrong Plumbing? Like that got approved by the planning board and then they're open for business and they never did the project? What happened with
don't know
that?
if
Do
I'm
you know?
familiar with Armstrong Plumbing. Take a look at that.
Jim, have you noticed that?
On that one, I can tell you.
Down North State Road, but
They haven't done one thing.
The issue became that, well, there was an existing structure there, but the issue became this water main, and the town was negotiating with them over replacing, because nobody knew that there was a water main that ran between North State and was that Morning View up the hill? So there's a water main on their property that apparently nobody knew about until they started working on the project.
Wasn't it on like an old survey that was in the town's records, but they didn't put it on their plan?
It wasn't on there. They had an old survey. I don't think it showed up on there. It had that feel of like something that was done on a handshake and,
Right.
never memorialized. So there was a deal on the table that the village water department was going to give them some pipe, and they were going to. So that's still in motion, that whole arrangement. But that's that's what the hangup was with the replacement of the water main.
Yeah. It looks like hell, that's for sure. But, all right.
All right, well, when it comes back to us, I guess we'll deal with it then. Other than that, any other matters?
Not tonight.
Okay. So, yes, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
A second.
Jim, how do you vote?
Of course.
Garrett?
Maybe. Okay.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I agree as well. So thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy
See you next year.
holidays.
Thank you, Marilyn, too.
Yeah.
Bye, Marilyn.
Forward to
Bye, Marilyn.
Happy New
Hi,
Year.
Marilyn.
See you, Jesus.
Yeah.